Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, I think we've been given 5 minutes, and it's irony that the issue which is affecting the sector most has got a limitation of timings. But I think I would skip. I had a presentation. I'm not going to show it on the screen. I'll try to cover the salient parts of it and just take you through my views in terms of what we are facing in fuel supply challenges and what could be the potential, uh, you know, steps that can mitigate this. Before I start, I just thought I'll just make two suggestions. One is that um, power consists of coal as a major constituent, which constitutes today almost 75-80% power cost, and it's very ironical to see that we don't have anybody from power coal ministry who would be hearing about the views and maybe carry forward what can be done and what cannot be done. So it may be a suggestion to IPPI organizers that in such sessions it's good to have somebody from, because I have sir who is here from power ministry, and I've seen many other faces from power ministry, but not a single face from coal ministry to the best of my knowledge. Coal issues, I think I'll just divide them in two parts, but we will deal with it in relation to supply. I think the one part which is related to the, the policy issues, and these are, for example, there are a number of, today coal supply has been linked to having signed PPAs and tying up sale of power. And I think it's a good initiative to make sure that a commodity which is in scarce supply is given to people who are selling power to consumers at a competitive tariff. But then I think what has happened is in the process that today you have power stations that are getting close to commissioning, but because of dearth of case one opportunities, they're not able to tie up sale of power. And I know almost 16, 17,000 megawatt capacity, which is very close to commissioning, and they are actually struggling because they are desperate. Uh, there have been discussions that short-term, medium-term sale of power will be allowed for supply of coal in the FSA, but I think those steps are still not implemented as policy initiatives. There's a lot of gap between what Ministry of Power wants and what Ministry of Coal is doing, and I think if you look at it, the most projects that are coming up through MOU route, where the states demand a certain amount of power as variable cost power, and the Ministry of Coal and the Coal India still does not allow that 5% or 7.5% of power that you have to sell to the host state as something which will qualify for coal supply. Another thing, Ministry of Power has issued norms that 10% of ox power has to be considered for whatever PPA you have. It has to be grossed up for ox power consumption while considering it for supply of coal, but it is still not implemented in coal ministry. So I think these are all low-hanging things and very easy to implement, but I think they still irritate the minds, irritate the promoters, and cause a lot of hardships. We'll concentrate mostly on the supply issues, and I don't want to go through the statistics like my other colleagues have skipped. I just want to take you through the facts that today a large majority of the power stations and the capacity that is operating in coal-based is suffering because, it's like we call it affected capacity, because they're not able to operate at optimum levels because of fuel shortages. Plants are running at 2 days the stock level, 7 days the stock levels, and so on. And CA norms require much larger stock levels to be maintained. And stranded capacity, which is actually not able to operate, is almost close to 17,300 megawatt as per the estimates available on the websites of various ministries. And what is this accounting for? This is accounting for almost 42,000 crores of loss, which at the rate of about 3 rupee 50 paisa tariff, which works out to really 0.45% of GDP. The future, about 78,000 megawatt capacity, which is planned till March 2015. Though we like to call it as 12th planned capacity addition, but I think predominantly this capacity is coming up till March 2015, because beyond that there are no coal supplies guaranteed by Ministry of Coal. Now, I've got some statistics which is interesting, and I want to throw this because I think this session is all about challenging ourselves and provocating the minds. The Planning Commission estimates show that um, the targets achievements has been at 50.5% all through in the various 5-year plans from 92 to 2007. And in India, the mining sector, the GDP growth linked with the mining sector is at merely 2 to 2.5% as compared to 8.5% in South Africa, 8% in Australia, and 4% in China. These are the other coal-rich countries. So you can see where we are in relation to which the other coal-rich countries. Like my other colleague pointed out that in relation to gas fields being explored, the coal is no different. We have explored only 75,000 square kilometers of area with mineral potential, where we have a potential of 575,000 square kilometers available. This is significantly less than all the mineral-rich states and countries. The exploration in India, I mean, that is something which all of us know. In India, the exploration is typically done by mostly the government-controlled companies like CMPDIL, GSI, MECL, etc. The reserves which were proven is at 118 billion out of the estimated reserves in India of 293 billion. And let me point out that when these estimates are done for proven reserves, they are done assuming coal mining up to 1200-meter depth. But I think all of us know that the coal mining currently is done mostly up to 300 meters depth and very rarely beyond 300-meter depths. And if you limit these reserves to 300 meters depth, they will be reduced to 70 odd billion and not 118 billion tons. The India's power sector is predominantly controlled by the public sector, which is almost 74.5%. Another very important thing which I'm sure you will be as surprised as I was when I found out this. In India, AP, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Odisha are the most mineral-rich states. But surprisingly, it is Andhra Pradesh and Gujarat which are the highest, which has the highest producing mines, and not the states like Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, which one would like to believe. The coal consumption has grown by 7.6% over the last many years as compared to the production, which has grown by about 6.3%. And another very important statistics which I'll share with you is that the per capita income of people in the mineral-rich states as compared to the world, in some of the other countries and states, it's been like this. Chhattisgarh has per capita income of 1,000 rupees. Odisha has 800 rupees. Jharkhand has 500 rupees. And look at what Australia has. Australia has Australian dollar 50,000 per capita. United States has 42,000 US dollars per capita income. Western Australia has 80,000 Australian dollars per capita income. Now, why am I bringing these? Because today you see there is tremendous resistance to exploration. So it's not just the capacity of the exploring agencies like CMPDIL or others in terms of building their capacity, but it's also the opposition and the resistance from the people who are sitting in the areas which are containing the reserves. So there's no wonder why the exploration has not been established or has not achieved significant progress in our country. The other thing is that Coal India is having, some colleague of mine talked about that they were set up with a different objective, and today they are operating with a different objective. Coal India is sitting with huge reserves, but their mining efficiency, I just want to tell you that per man shift, open cast mining output is 10.4 tons in India. When it is compared with global benchmarks, it is 65 tons. It's something which requires us to think that why are we sitting with this kind of poor performance? And this is nothing but when world is producing this kind of productivity, it's not difficult for us to achieve that. After all, we can afford to invite people to participate, consultants, advisors, and change our ways of doing things. Another important aspect that for a prospecting license to be obtained, it has to pass through 126 tables in the government before it is granted. And last but not the least, I think just want to mention that the power crisis, the coal crisis was beginning to happen in 2009, and I have been reading the magazines, and Powerline magazines carried articles way back in 2009 where the coal shortages were showing up. And I think if we had acted in time, probably we would not be facing such a huge challenge that we face today. And in a country which is already facing such a current account deficit, the two things that come to my mind is that we can very easily afford not to import so much coal. And the other thing is that when we talk about power being procured by the discoms, there's a huge irony again that we have 80,000 megawatt of capacity which operates on diesel, which is for captive use by the industry because there is no reliable and quality power available to them. So if this was to be replaced, I think it can easily be replaced by the coal-based power, which will be much cheaper. But right now, I think it's not going to happen. Some of the broad statistics that based on the prediction of Coal India by the 12th five-year plan, that is 2016-17, they would need about 848 million tons of coal, and against that their target production is 615 million ton. So if you take out the production from some of the captive mines, this would still be a huge, more than very close to 200 million tons of import. Government of India has already taken some initiatives which I just share with you. I think some of you may be aware, but I just share with you that the government has now revised or set up a target for CMPDIL to increase its capacity from 400,000 meters per annum to 1,500,000 meters per annum, and they are allowing them the budgetary support to do so. For reclamation of mined areas, mining companies to be allowed to earmark a percentage of their book profit each year to meet the expenditure for rehabilitation. Mine closure expenditure will be considered for tax exemption. Private sector to be attracted to mineral exploration through policy initiative to augment the capacity and bring in private investment. Also involve and invite private sector participation for coal mining through MDO operations, and bring in the latest technology, and especially so for the underground mining. CIL is targeting 8.05% growth during the 12th five-year plan, and coal regulator is being set up. That has been announced, and we hope that by December 2013 it should be in place. I have a few suggestions that I have listed out for consideration, and these are, I think right now, if you look at it, the Power Ministry is often blamed for things that are not happening, but when I look at it, there is no central ministry which looks after the power sector. Power Ministry often finds itself, helpless. Like I mentioned earlier, that there have been guidelines issued by Minister of Power to Coal Ministry to follow, but they have not been followed. So likewise, you see a lot of gaps between what Power Ministry would want to do and what would happen actually. So I think that's where the suggestion is that create a central monitoring cell in Ministry of Coal to facilitate and expedite clearances and progress for both government sector as well as private sector, mining, and with definitive targets to start production. Allocate more funds. Right now, I think when I was going through the articles, the India allocates very, very nominal funds for exploration to bring the proven reserves to a higher level. I think now the government is considering this, and I would request that it should be done. Allocate more funds for our exploration to increase the proven category. Invite international agencies to do the exploration and also implement the modern technologies. Invest in companies like CMPDIL to augment their capacity of doing exploration. More coal blocks to be awarded to good domestic and international companies for MDO with clear targets for starting production by CIL and its companies. And I think this is something which can be done quickly. As you know, NTPC has been allotted 18 billion tons of worth of coal mines, and which has potential to generate around 80 million tons per annum of production from these mines. And only recently they've awarded one of that mine to an internationally acclaimed MDO company, and hopefully that company will start production in that coal mine. But majority of the other mines allotted, with no offense meant to any colleagues of mine, I've been an ex-NTPC, meant. But I think most of the other mines allotted to them have remained, unoperational. So, I mean, if we bring in a competitive bidding and invite the MDOs to operate, we will not only be benefited in opening these mines and increasing the pool of coal, but also will be able to, benchmark ourselves with the best of the world in terms of using the technology which is available for coal production. The CIL should, sure. Just two more suggestions. That Ministry of Coal, I was talking to Chairman Coal India very recently, and he was citing one example that he has two large coal blocks which are fully ready to go for operation, but he is constrained because in spite of his chasing the coal railway ministry for the last 5 years, he's not been able to get the infrastructure to, evacuate the coal which will be produced from these mines. I think one more suggestion which is very important, which has been considered earlier, the private sector coal mining, there has been talk that the 30% of the coal should be allowed to be sold. If they have surplus coal, it should be allowed to be sold. Some kind of a regulatory system can be set up where one doesn't make a windfall gain, but it will be increasing the pool available in the market if this is allowed. And Sure. And the last but not least is that, we had this participation of the the coal blocks allotted to the state governments were being developed through the joint ventures, which they used to select partners through the bidding process, is being abandoned now through a policy change. And I think these blocks have been remaining unexplored for almost like 4, 5, 6, 7 years since it has been allotted. So instead of abandoning a truly PPP model, I think it will be more important to put in place the checks and balances to make sure that they are done properly. Thank you very much.